It was Sarah. She smiled wide as she greeted me, her wild hair tousled about her delicate face. She was only a bit younger than me, and growing into her own all the same. She was the second daughter of Balthar, the finest metalworker in the village. If not in his forge, he was with his family. A proud father of 3 beautiful daughters and a new baby boy. Balthar and his family lived just across the village, on the ridge adjacent to my father's hut. Sarah had taken a liking to me as wildlings, affinity turning to affection with the coming of age. Lately she was finding any reason to talk, it seemed. I said as little as possible without seeming rude whenever she came around in hopes of inspiring her to do it less frequently. In truth, she made me nervous, and I didn't want to hear of it from the twins. Your father sends for you. Finding you is easy enough. That looked like fun. She nodded toward the berries, her arms crossed behind her as she spoke. Blue goop colored her legs below the knees. Her vibrant blue eyes almost seemed violet when the light hit them just right. I didn't know how to react as she stood there smiling at me. It came as no surprise to hear the ruckus we made had caught some attention. A mob of lecturing parents, sure, but I hadn't expected Sarah to appear. Flustered and looking for an exit from the situation before the twins noticed, I cut straight to the heart of the matter. Where is he? I asked, my voice shaky and lacking the slightest hint of confidence. I heard the twins begin to snicker behind me, stifled giggles escaping them in snorting bursts. She didn't seem to mind them in the slightest. I'll take you. Come on. I would have much rather made the trek alone, suspecting he would most likely be found near the press at which she had been working. Before I had a chance to avoid her company, she turned with the flash of a smile and ran for the tree line. Keep up if you can, she called back as her hair flailed about behind her. I didn't feel much like chasing after her, but it was much better than hanging around Cass and Pole. "Oh, what's this about?" Pole exclaimed as I set down the rope I meant to carry. I didn't know what I was setting into, but I preferred to set into it without the rope. Sorry, I offered sincerely. That's cold, man, Cass said, shaking his head with his arms crossed as if he were actually disappointed, shrugging your responsibilities off on someone else so you can run off with some pretty girl. We'll remember this. And we have the next year with you, Pole called out. I had already began running in the direction Sarah had gone. While the twins were having their fun, she had disappeared into some brush at the base of the Alachine. I made my way across the short distance and entered the brush. As I rounded the broad base of one of the Alachine, she sprang out from behind some vegetation to my right. I slid to a halt just in time to avoid a collision. She laughed and gave a playful shove. We aren't running the whole way, silly. I just wanted to get you away from those 2 clowns, she said with a grin. I didn't respond. Honestly, I was still a bit winded after chasing the berries and glad to hear we wouldn't be racing around. We continued in the direction of the village, making our way down one of the many paths worn through the dense green. The festival tonight is going to be extra special. Aren't you excited? She exclaimed, as if she were floating. She seemed excited enough for both of us. Yeah, I responded, trying not to sound as nervous as I was. I knew where this was going. It was obvious what was happening. A wildling could have just as easily delivered this message. My father had given the task to her with the intention of having us spend time together. We were heading in the opposite direction of the pressing stations. I could imagine his burly laughter as he sent a wildling off to deliver this task to Sarah and set the whole thing in motion. He was playing his hand at matchmaker, as this festival marked the coming of age. It was a role typically reserved for the mothers of Reisenbow, and if it weren't for the sting it would bear, I might have reminded him of that fact. So you'll be leaving come morning then? She asked, knowing the answer. I was becoming slightly annoyed with the situation. Conversation had only recently become awkward, as the expectations of our houses encroached upon us as surely as the coming of the festival. I cared for her dearly, just not for the roles desired of us. Not yet learned in how to deal with such things, I was glad that the morrow would deliver a swift escape. You know I will, I responded, trying not to exhibit my frustrations. At sunrise tomorrow, I'll depart with the others as is tradition. I attempted to sound cool about the whole endeavor. In truth, I couldn't have been more anxious. There were many perils beyond the sanctity of the village, and my pride hungered for the honor I would attain upon my return. I felt ready to brave all the challenges the world could throw at me, yet my spirit stirred with the idea, as if something were still amiss. I would take the mark of the Divide upon my chest and be recognized as a man, the same as my father before me and his father before him. With it came the freedom to choose one's way in life, the right to build a home and start a family, or freely travel the land. I longed for this freedom, for there were many things I wished to see, many things I wished to know. I had my reasons. It must be a wonderful adventure. I wish it weren't only for boys. Seems less than fair, she said, kicking at the soft dark earth with a foot covered in dirty blue goop. Dirt squished between her toes as she trotted along, a jolly rhythm in her step. It's dangerous. Some of us may not return, I responded, regurgitating the age-old explanation. As a male, I hadn't put much thought into her perspective. Women face their own rites of passage, rites as old and sacred as the Great Mother herself. I wasn't about to discuss this with Sarah, however. I'd sooner run. "But that's what makes it exciting," Sarah exclaimed, "banding together to do whatever it takes to return to your people who eagerly await and celebrate your return. I would like an adventure like that someday." She gazed up through the canopy above as she said this, longing in her eyes. "Careful what you wish for. Danger and adventure are real enough," I warned, once again simply regurgitating the lessons of the elders. I was beginning to think I was the only member of my generation who truly listened to the wisdom they shared. She laughed. "Same old Kael. Must you always be so serious?" She reached out and gave another playful shove to my shoulder. She liked a good scuffle, exploiting every opportunity to spark play or prove her endurance in a grappling match. As small a frame as she had, she could hold her own well enough.